Hello and welcome to the Right to be Heard Town Hall. The government thinks appointing him as CAG was the single biggest mistake they've made. He's accused of killing the India growth story. Joining us on the Right to be Heard Town Hall, India's Super Auditor, Mr. Vinod Rai. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for the man who's emerged as a beacon in the fight against corruption. We've got lots of anxious people. Usually they're very angry to get on punching the guest who's come on the platform. Lots of warm smiles are greeting you. That's a big change. Let's get down and get Shaiza to ask the first question. Go on.
So usually auditors function on the basis of facts, but I think your 2G report would have qualified you for the Booker Prize for Best Work in Fiction. Let me explain to you why. I have with me your performance audit guidelines. They don't talk about presumptive loss. You chose to use it. Then you guesstimated losses on the basis of three parameters: Estel, which was an ineligible company in your estimation; the equity infusion parameter, which your officer said could not be used; and the 2G versus 3G comparison, which your office again and TRA put on hold. You then took dictations before the report was prepared from Murli Manohar Joshi, who headed the PAC. You used all these measures to come up with this report and came up with a figure of 1,76,000 crores, which is steeped in speculation.
Thank you very much for that question. I think you've done a lot of research and you seem to be having a lot of knowledge about it also. Maybe you have some background of chartered accountancy or otherwise. Let me explain something to you. That when any national auditor does an audit, he does not do it by parameters which are prepared by him alone. We have a certain set of international set of guidelines which apply to all what is known as supreme audit institutions. You know, CAG or the Auditor General, the generic expression is Supreme Audit Institution, and there are 191 of us all over the world. And there are guidelines which apply to 191 of us, all of us. Okay. Now we have used those guidelines. Maybe you do not agree with them. We put out 4 parameters, 4 estimates on them. But let me also explain to you one thing, that in each of our guidelines, you won't find every word that we use in our report, like presumptive gain or presumptive loss or windfall profit or windfall gain. They won't be there. But we do not, as auditors, use a single sentence in any of our reports which is not backed by what we call key documents, facts. Okay. Now, so whatever has been put into our reports is very much put into the report. But I must explain one more thing to you. And that's why I said you've done very well and a lot of research into it. Now, who audits the auditor? We are called supreme auditors, just like the Supreme Court. Nobody passes judgments over the Honorable Supreme Court. Is that right? Similarly, nobody sits on audit over the Supreme Auditor. So what we did was, we asked another such supreme auditor of a different country to do an audit on us. We requested countries such as UK, Australia, USA, etc., who we think are professionally as competent as we are, to do a peer review. It's called a peer review rather than an audit. The Auditor General of Australia agreed to do it. He led a team of 12 or 14 people drawn from Australia, US, Netherlands, Denmark and Canada. And that team, over a 7-month period, did a thorough peer review of our procedures and 33 of our performance audit reports. Their peer review, which was completed last year and given to us, without us dotting an I, crossing a T, we put it out onto our website on 30th September. It's available. Now, one of the reports that they have looked into is a report that you referred to. You can see the comments. It's a third party. He is an Auditor General of Australia, but he has a team of 4 or 5 other countries also. Now, that report speaks best about how we've conducted our audit, how objective we've been, how we've used international guidelines and the parameters that
So, but the charge against you is that you're a headline grabber, that of 4 formulations of the 4 various estimates of loss, you chose the one which had the most sensational figure to put the government on a spot, working as was alleged at the behest of the opposition.
Rahul, we didn't choose that figure. You chose that figure. We put out 4 figures and you which means media or the man on the street pick up that figure. We did not choose any figure. We said that we have 4 set of norms or guidelines, models that we have put out, and we have also said in the report that the fact that there has been loss cannot be denied. The quantum of loss can be debated, and that's why we've put out a huge set of losses. You choose any one, come out with the 5th one, come out with the 6th one, whatever you want. So you chose the
okay, you have a follow-up.
I just have a follow-up. You're accusing him of choosing the 1,76,000 crore figure, but you didn't choose the 2,000 crore figure put out by RP Singh, was the principal auditor. Rather, you arm twisted him into signing the report and the figure that you put out. So what do you have to say about that?
I'll tell you. In the setup that the CAG sits, there's no scope for arm twisting. And I'll explain to you what the process is. The process is, his own team put out a set of figures. He sat in judgment over those figures. He put out a set of figures. Now what we do is we go through a process of sifting 3 layers where these things. Now he was a director general, So what we did was we put the report that he had prepared before 5 other of his peers, directors general, and they conducted within the organization a peer review. It's minuted. It's all before the Joint Parliamentary Committee. There's nothing that we have hidden from anybody. Okay? Now, whatever figures had been put out was peer reviewed. Then it went to the next higher level, and ultimately it came to me. It's not that I can use a red pen and knock out 2,000 and make it 2 lakhs. It can't. There's a process followed, and that process, as much as we are before right to be heard today, is available on the RTI. It's available to the JPC.
Rekha Gupta gave him only 1 evening to sign that report.
Okay, let's take some more.
Let me answer this. I think 1 evening is far too much. You know what it was? I took only 30 seconds to sign it, because once the report is approved by the CAG, where does he sign the printed report? It's printed. You require 30 seconds to sign 5 copies. 1 evening is not required.
Okay, let's take a question from the gentleman.
Sir, in a recent program on Right to Heard, Mr. Digvijay Singh, when asked about the 2 biggest blunders of the UPA government, has said appointment of Mr. Vinod Rai has been one of the biggest blunders of UPA. Do you think so?
Number one, I didn't hear him, but please, you must understand, every individual, and he's a very respectable person, he has a lot of experience behind, has a right to have an opinion.
No, but you're also accused, sir, of killing the India growth story. Now, that's a very, very serious charge. The fact that your reports have led to policy paralysis amongst the bureaucracy and amongst government. And if India is down now to a 5% rate of growth, the government holds you accountable for that.
Tell me, every decade, starting from 1960, you have a CAG's report, which has created a lot of furore.
Never has it created so much furore as before your tenure.
Yeah, because you did not have 150 channels chasing those reports. Today, the media, the citizen, they have all become very aware, very alert. And earlier, a report was plugged into Parliament, discussed in the PAC, probably forgotten. But today, I must say that the man on the street is sensitized about every little thing that is happening in government, and media puts it out.
Okay, let's take the next question.
My question was related to Rahul only. He just talked about killing.
Loud.
Yeah, he just talked about killing India growth story. In fact, during last couple of years, you are being perceived as biggest enemy of India's economy. In fact, since yesterday, I have come across many people who have been telling Vinod Rai is the man responsible for India's economy growing at slowest pace during last 10 years. And in fact, your presumptive loss theory, your presumptive loss figures, they created huge public uproar, and as a result there has been complete policy paralysis in the government. No minister, no bureaucrat wants to act, and as a result there has been halting of the growth of India's economy.
You said in the last 10 years. Our first report, which you just talked about, came out only in November 2010.
No, it's the lowest growth in the last 10 years, and the government holds you accountable.
Let me explain. That's why I said our report came out only in November 2010. Growth is not something which you can switch on or switch off. Some of you may be economists sitting over here with background in economy. You know, anything that you do today is going to project into growth maybe 3 years hence. That's why I said our report came only 2.5 years back. That's the first part of it. Number two, I sincerely believe, and I've done 35 years in government and 6 years, roughly 5.5 years as an auditor. Anybody who thinks that he's scared of audit or vigilance or anything like that is looking for an alibi for non-performance. It's a bogey. It's a total bogey. Because if you are taking a decision in good faith, and if you are acting as per government norms, there's no reason why anybody should be able to chase you and pin you down for a decision.
So many of your peers and colleagues in bureaucracy have told us that hindsight is always 20/20. It's very easy to sit in judgment later. When the file comes to you, you're taking dynamic decisions, and yes, some of them can go wrong. The decisions are taken in good faith, and unless the bureaucrats are given some confidence to put pen on paper, they will refuse to do so, and several of them have stopped putting pen on paper, thereby stalling government policy.
I'll explain
No,
this
sir,
to you.
actually,
See, auditors general, 191 countries, all do audits post the event. It's designed like that. There are two types of audit. One is an internal audit, which is done concurrently, which means it goes along with the decision-making process. The other is external audit of the kind that we do, which is done post the event. So we are meant to be doing it. And yes, if your allegation is that we are wise by hindsight, yes, we are wise by hindsight, but that's how the constitution makers wanted it, and not only in this country, in any other country. Number two is, we've explained, the Vigilance Commissioner has explained that there are two types of mistakes we can make. A mistake which is made in good faith, which is an act of omission. You know, you're taking 10 decisions in a month, 1 or 2 may go wrong, but as long as it's in good faith. Number two is an act of commission, where it is premeditated, you know, and you by design done something which may land up for benefit for somebody else. Now, each one of us with 40 years of experience in government don't need even to read those papers. You can smell whether that decision is malfeasance or it is a decision gone wrong.
No, but do you
in good
accept
faith.
the charge that several bureaucrats have stopped taking decisions because they are scared of CAG, because they were scared of Vinod Rai coming up?
They are those bureaucrats who are looking for an alibi for non-performance. It's a bogey. It's a total bogey.
actually, sir, those who are really worried about India's economy, they also allege that you, as a CAG, you conducted with mental blinkers. On the one hand, you too much focus on presumptive loss to public exchequer. However, on the other hand, you miss the point that because of the cheaper allocation was responsible for faster telecom spread, and you over focused on this presumptive loss because of cheaper allocation of a spectrum.
See, number one, an auditor conducts audit along his guidelines, his parameters. Okay, that's his core competence. That is the requirement of an auditor. He doesn't look at everything else. That's one. Number two, you know, when you talk about presumptive loss or something, these are not things which we've cooked up. These have been in the international arena for years. They've been there in the years. Lots of others are doing it. And that's why to say that over the last 2.5 years or 3 years, everything in India has come to a standstill only because one report said something, I think is being very fair to the Indian economy.
But you should answer that charge, that because resources were allocated not to auction, they were available cheaper, and that's the reason why almost 900 odd million people have mobile phones in India.
I'll explain that. See, any action done by government is an action which is normally for public good. But of course, government has to run their affairs also. Government imposes taxes. There has to be a fair balance between public good and revenue generation. Nowhere have we said that government should have maximized revenue. We have just said these were your guidelines and we have audited as per your own guidelines. And please, if you look at a report, take care to read it, and you will find that the government had fixed for itself the level of penetration for telephony. And when the licenses or the LOIs were distributed in 2008, that target had already been met. So if penetration was one of the objectives, it had been achieved. So government could have taken a decision that, well, we will give out licenses for free. We would never have complained because that would have been a government policy. We don't audit government policy. We don't constitute government policy. We only audit the implementation of that policy. And if government takes a decision that, okay, license will be free, fair enough.
Okay, let's take the next question.
So why do you need a media advisor? Well, your prior 29 CAGs never used the help of any media advisors. And why were your reports leaked to the press?
So I would sincerely request, sir, that you ask me a question under RTI. I'll give you the name of the gentleman I inherited as the media advisor.
But the other question, how is it that Vinod Rai's reports always got leaked to the press?
I'm coming to that. So it's not a fact that we didn't have media advisors. Okay, we've always had media advisors, always. And if I remember correctly, that's why I said if you ask me under RTI. Okay, a gentleman called Virendra Kumar was the media advisor when I took over, because I distinctly remember, he got camera crew, etc. in my office. So we've always had media advisors. Number one. Number two, we don't leak reports. We give out our reports officially. And you'll ask me why? Because the institution of CAG is covered by the RTI. We felt at one point of time that we prepare reports, as the Constitution and Article 151 says, to be placed in Parliament. Okay? Now, till such time as the report is placed in Parliament, it should not get into public domain, because it's a privilege of Parliament to see that report first. So, if you ask me a question on a report which I was preparing for Parliament, I would not share it with you. But a gentleman like you went to the CIC, appealed, and the CIC ruled that no, anything that you are preparing, you have to share with the public at any point of time under RTI. So, if I prepared a draft report, I have not placed it in Parliament, and you spend 10 rupees and ask me for that report, sir, I'll give it to you officially. That's what the position
So you're
is.
saying
we don't leak it. We give it out
because
officially.
the government asks the question often, and we've been asked this, that ask Vinod Rai, how do his reports make their way to the media before they're tabled in Parliament? And that's a very serious charge of impropriety that the government leveled at you, sir.
I have written to the Honorable Law Minister, I have written to the Honorable Speaker of the Lok Sabha, I have written to the Honorable Prime Minister on this issue, that so-called leaks of reports which are under preparation are causing us as much of discomfiture as they are causing to anybody else. And I'll tell you why. Because half-baked reports get out into the media at that point of time. It's not even my opinion as yet. I've not even seen that report when I see it in the newspaper or I see it on RTI. So it's unfair.
Now, how did they come out? How did they
give it out? You ask for it, I'll give it to you. Suppose I'm preparing a report today. I'm doing an audit and I'm preparing a report which I'll probably place in the monsoon session of Parliament starting in July. And you say, okay, you're doing a report on XYZ project. What is the status? What are your findings? Whatever be my status of that report, I'll share it with you. I have no option. So I don't leak it. I give it out officially. And I have put it on record to the three dignitaries that I just mentioned that, look, it has to be given, we are giving it out. That's all.
Okay, so if any of the ministers who've been asking that question are watching this program, there's your answer. In fact, Manish Tiwari publicly challenged you to come on to a debate with him. Now that you've retired, he says, I will take Vinod Rai fact on fact and demolish as fiction all the claims that he's made.
So, what do you want me to say?
Are you prepared to accept the challenge?
Oh, okay. Please understand one thing. I mean, I'll be setting a very incorrect precedent if I start debating my reports in the public domain. Tomorrow you will ask the Supreme Court judge that you've given a judgment. It may, all judgments may hurt somebody, may benefit somebody. You start debating in public. That's not the way it's done.
So then Manish Tiwari can claim you're running away from a debate.
I mean, the Honorable Minister is entitled to his viewpoint in it. But as a person who has occupied a responsible position, I don't think I should ever be setting a precedent which has not been set in the last 65 years and will build pressure on my successors or anybody else
Do you
Should
think
not
it appropriate for Manish Tiwari to be publicly challenging you to a debate of this nature?
That's his viewpoint. That's his viewpoint. Why should I comment upon his viewpoint?
Because he's also a public functionary. And
That's
for
his
him to
viewpoint.
challenge another public functionary for the execution of his responsibility, I mean, there seems to be a little bit of unfairness in that as well.
No, no, not at all.
You don't think so?
Just the way I feel that I should not be debating it, he's entitled to his viewpoint to debate it.
Oh, TV channels have missed a big debate. That would have been very nice. Manish Tiwari on the one side, Vinod Rai on the other. Go on, Aditya.
The Bharatiya Janata Party has alleged that the appointment of Shashikant Sharma as the new CAG is a case of institutional conflict of interest because he would be auditing the purchases done under his watch over the last 10 years. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I don't know about the allegation and who's made the allegation, but please understand one thing. What's the process? Anybody who's appointed as a CAG, normally, at least in the last 8 CAGs, have been a secretary to some department. I was in the finance ministry. Before that, I was joint secretary in the defense ministry. So I don't think it's very fair to say that the individual is going to be, a conflict of interest is going to. And in any case, we have audited defense ministry up to 2012. So please, anybody who is appointed, you need to look at his track record, and government does that. And believe me, anybody who says that the choice is not proper is not fair to the person, because he's got an excellent track record. Nobody's got a better track record in terms of having worked in the state and the center. He's a person of unimpeachable integrity, and his professional competence has not been doubted anywhere.
Because the sense in the public, at least, sir, with all respect to Mr. Sharma's capabilities, is that the government would have found one officer who will ensure that they don't give the government a tough time like Vinod Rai gave a tough time. That's the buzz on the street. That's the reality.
See, now a person of the kind that has been selected, and I told you that absolutely outstanding competence for 35 years. Do you think for the next 5 years he's going to change and, demolish his own credibility? I think it's very unfair to say that about any individual, because one's entire career is an open book. And after having done 35 years of what he and I had done, to believe that, well, for the next 5 years, for whatever narrow gains, if any, one is going to done is not fair.
For the man on the street, he's a modern day Indian hero. For the government, he's enemy number one. We've got India's super auditor, Vinod Rai. You're watching The Right to Be Heard Town Hall. The gentleman will ask the next question, sir.
What Mr. Session did to Election Commission, you have done to the CAG. He brought the functioning to a higher level. But after his exit, there was a delusion. Similarly, after the new CAG has taken over, I'm not casting any aspersion on his style of functioning or his integrity. But there are reports that they have started a system of sending secret reports to the government, what are called as management surveys. Is there a mechanism provided under the constitution, under the guidelines, or is it something new which he has started, and is it a departure from the line of action which you had adopted?
The reports, the secret reports that you're talking about, it's very unfair to attribute it to the present CAG. Actually, those were reports sent by me. And I'll tell you why. All reports that we prepare under Article 151 of the Constitution, we place in Parliament. But there are some reports in which we give advice to the government on issues which are sensitive. Maybe defense, maybe space, maybe atomic energy, or those kind of things. Then, when government asks for our advice, we give their advice. But I think it was in 2009, 1 year before the conduct of the Commonwealth Games, there was a cacophony of opinions all around that, is the infrastructure ready? Are the stadia ready? Are the facilities imported? Are the sportsmen ready? Are the training programs ready? That was a time when we prepared one report, not an audit report, because we weren't auditing expenditure, but a study report to give government a very objective viewpoint about what was the stage.
But in the common man's perception, this could be the auditor for warning the crooks that this is what you are doing wrong and set it right, else you'll be caught.
No.
Are you alerting the government or the concerned ministry?
Are you hurting?
Alerting.
No. We are advising the ministry that, look, these are the procedures. This is what has been done. Please take immediate action on this to set things right, because we are going to be watching you very closely. So they're not going to be covering up anything. They can't.
So in a way, you are suggesting course correction.
In fact, all our reports, you see, please understand, we've been saying this, that we don't have an adversarial position. We are not we and they. We are not on opposite sides of the table. We are on the same government, and us, auditors worldwide, are on the same side of the government. What? Same side of the table. Why? We are in the business of upgrading governance.
The three most important characteristic feature of CAG, I believe, is number one, independence, number two, competence, and number three, as you have seen one of the conclaves of India today, suitably empowered. Now, the three questions that I would like to club together and ask is the CAG in the present polity of India independent enough, or is it a caged parrot as number of parrots are caged? Secondly, is it competent enough? With you in the hot seat, it was very competent, but as questions have been brought forth, that the government may not, if, as Digvijay Singh in the last show said, that you were the biggest blunder, then government has the option of choosing a cheerleader because the collegium system has not been brought into vogue. And thirdly, how would you define that you should be, in fact, CAG should be suitably empowered?
Okay, that's an important question.
Okay, the CAG today is totally independent. Whatever anybody may say, and take it from me, I'm telling you the truth today. We have never been pressurized by anybody.
Do you receive calls in the middle of your reports from ministers saying, "Meri ko bacha lena, phasana mat, dekh lena"?
No question. Just no question.
Not one call.
Not a
From
single
not
call.
one minister.
Not a single.
How's that possible?
Well, now that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. I can do only one thing. You produce the volume of the Gita, or you produce my wife. Her name is Gita. I'll place my hand on it and say, I'm speaking the truth and nothing but the truth. So you will have to believe me after I say that. Absolutely no pressure. Please understand that the political setup today is very mature. It's very standardized, and nobody ever tries.
But
to
the
put
Prime Minister has
pressure.
publicly spoken out against you in the editors' conference. He said that you've gone way beyond your mandate. It's almost as if you got a free run. The President has spoken against you. Every minister has spoken against you.
Well, I'm not privy to the President speaking against us. The Prime Minister did make some observations, and he's such an exalted position. He's such an experienced person that I explained to him about what our stand on those particular things was. But in answering his question, so independence I've taken care of.
No, but what about the collegium system?
Exactly. Now, I don't think you should in any way trivialize the functioning of government. CAGs, 12 of them, the present gentleman is a 12th CAG after independent India, have all been selected by the same process. And I don't think they have ever selected the wrong person. The government does follow a very mature system, very well-structured system of selection.
No, but why should there not be some member of the opposition in that system, sir?
Yes, so why the collegium system has it asked?
I mean, it's an opinion. I mean, the government follows both the model.
What is your opinion?
For example,
Like for the CVC, it already exists. There's a demand that for the CBI director's appointment, also there be a collegium, which the government is now agreeing to. Why not also for CAG?
I think for the CBI director, there is a collegium. For the CVC, there is a collegium. I think there is a collegium for the election commissioner also. I'm not very sure. But both the processes are equally good. And if the government decides to follow a collegium process, it will be only an improvement. There's absolutely no
Also,
doubt.
the other question about empowerment. Should CAG have more powers than it has?
That's what I was coming to, because he asked me 3 questions. This is the third one. I think the CAG today has sufficient powers for auditing. He has unfettered access to records.
So Supreme Court has said that CAG has no final say, and those who have the final say in PSC don't say anything on 2G, 3G or Colgate. My simple question is that in such circumstances, how we are going to control the corruption?
No, I'll tell you. CAG's reports, once they are put into Parliament, are written in stone. No change can be made to that report. But these reports are then debated in the PSC. PSC can make their recommendations on that report. I mean, they may totally agree with it, they may not agree with it, they may make some want to make some recommendations over that report, and that goes to Parliament, where it's supposed to be debated to Parliament. So, our reports are there in public domain and before Parliament.
No, but the point that he's making is it ultimately goes to the PSC, where everybody acts as per his or her political brief. So you never really come to any finite conclusion, because in the PSC it always becomes the Congress versus the BJP. They're tearing up reports, fighting with each other. Therefore, your work doesn't go to any logical conclusion, sir.
PSCs have been in existence for 65 years in this country. Based on whatever could have happened in one report, I don't think we should be passing judgment on the PSC. It's not fair at all. PSC has been the most important committee of parliament, and they have performed very well, I should think.
Sir, the new generation is quite disillusioned by the way things are going on in a country. What is your message? What will be the future of a country? Will it bright? Will we be able to get respite from this corruption and black money?
No, I don't think there's any reason for anyone, least of all Gen Next, as I would like to say, or the new generation, to feel disillusioned. It's the other way around. I feel very encouraged by what is happening. The Gen Next has come center stage. When we were of the age of 25, 30, 40, we didn't come out into the streets and start agitating about things. I think till I got into college and read something about the Constitution of India, I didn't know what the CAG was. So I think today the milieu that we see is very encouraging. The man on the street has come center stage. He's very discerning. He's demanding his rights, which means if you are taking tax from my pocket, please tell me how do you spend that money. And I think that's a very encouraging phenomenon. We need to be very enthused with it.
I want to ask you about the secretive reports or management reports as they call it. Now that you have explained some of it, there are two things that are still to be known. Number one, you've said that only certain departments or ministries which are really sensitive, like defense or nuclear or atomic or something like that. And number two, so first question is that is it really true that no other departments will be included in this secretive reports? And number two, is it not a violation of CIC guidelines that you have just told us that CIC tells you that you have to update the media as well as the parliament, simultaneously? So is it not a violation of CIC guidelines?
I'll tell you. Number one, it's not an entire department. The management reports that you are talking about, these are not management reports, these are just advisories that we said. It's a very small portion. It's not of the entire department. It's probably an activity in that department about which we advise them. Number two, the RTI norms do not apply to those departments. They are exempt from. For example, CBI. CBI is not subject to RTI. So there is no harm if we give an advisory to the CBI. We can't give out that report or that advisory under the RTI, because that department is covered, not covered under RTI.
One of the provisions of the Indian Penal Code is that when a crime comes to your notice, you shall immediately report it to the police or any other competent agency. Now, in the new definition of the Prevention of Corruption Act, it's not a very new definition, it came, I think, about 10 years back. Earlier, it was when you take an illegal gratification and for gain for yourself or any of your relations, it was corruption. But now, if you cause wrongful loss to the government or any authority, it is also defined as corruption. Now, sir, my point is, and it is your law, anybody's duty who first notices this wrongful loss to report it to the competent authority. Now, when it comes to the auditor's notice, where you worked out presumptive losses and you held it to be totally unjustified, why did you not register a case, which was your duty under the law?
We are auditors. Our job is to conduct audit and inform Parliament about the observations in our audit. It's not our job to register cases. Registration of cases is done by the CBI or the Vigilance Commission. Vigilance Commission supervises the CBI, and they are the ones who are supposed to do investigation and prosecution. We don't do either investigation or prosecution. We only do audit. But let me inform you that in the course of audit, if we come across something which we think is an irregularity and maybe an act of malfeasance or an act of mala fide, then we don't wait to put it into our reports or place it in Parliament. We immediately inform the CBC or the CBI that, look, this needs to be investigated. And a case can be registered only after investigation, and prima facie some criminal act is.
So did you do that when you found out there was some case of irregularity, possible illegality? Did you, as he asks, immediately inform the CBI?
Any number of advices we have given in lots of other cases. I may not be able to tell you, but we do that. I mean, every 3 months, 4 months, you'll find that we've been doing it.
Okay, go on.
Sir, it's a fact that CAG audits only 40 to 50% of government expenditure, and rest of the expenditure goes in either PPP societies, as you just mentioned. And these are the breeding grounds of corruption, as in recent years we have found all the political nexus with these kind of things. And we have already advised government to put it in. What was the government reaction one? In case the government doesn't put it into under the CAG ambit, what a common man can do to pressurize government?
I'll tell you. I just mentioned to you that it doesn't fall within the automatic legal mandate of the CAG, which means automatically we cannot do it. Okay, but we have been auditing all these. Why? Because the government requests us to audit. So it is built into the act that either we have a mandate to audit, or issues where we don't have an automatic mandate, the government can request us to do the audit, and we do the audit. Up till now, by executive decision, we have been auditing. But it needs to be put under the automatic legal mandate, which means it built into the act itself, for which we have advised government.
Several ministers who spoke to me while you were CAG said you changed after becoming CAG, that you were a different sort of person when you were a bureaucrat in the 3 odd decades, and the moment you became CAG, you metamorphosed into a different person. What do you want to tell those who felt that you stuck by the norm, did what was right, and suddenly did a volte-face when you became?
Everybody who sits in a chair grows with that chair, and in our particular case, I had taken an oath to the Constitution. Okay. Now, as a secretary to government within the state or in the in central government, you must understand that the secretary is the administrative head of that department. Above him is the minister. In a parliamentary democracy of the kind that we have in India, very vibrant parliamentary democracy, which has delivered very good growth also, the political executive is the head. So the secretary may have a viewpoint, but the viewpoint that prevails is always that of the minister.
Before you, your predecessors always told government line. What is your opinion about your successor? How can you or your ex-officers like you keep a watch on them?
It's unfair for me to comment upon my successor. My predecessors were equally good. Absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. And each one of them has been as competent and upright as anybody else would be. Time will tell again, but I can give you the assurance to the best of my knowledge, which I just mentioned, that his track record is so unblemished and so outstanding that he will live up to your expectations.
Okay. Mr. Rai, I was in 8th class when the historical first time tabling of one of the reports of the Union Audit of Defence in 1988 took place, and I remember what Mr. N.K.P. Salve, the then Union Minister, said. A major part of it was expulsed from Rajya Sabha because it was too harming. But one of the points that he said that, well, CAG had no point fingering into the policies of the government. And now I'm grown up, and still the same debate continues, whether the CAG has any right to come into the policies of the government. Sir, is there any equatorial line which the CAG is not supposed to cross, or for the benefit of the nation, policies also can be looked after? And after all, CAG is not just the Muninji.
Listen, in our reports we've said very clearly that policy formulation is the sole prerogative of government. You, the man on the street, has elected members of parliament. Members of parliament then, from them, comprise the council of ministers. In them vests the power in a parliamentary democracy of formulating policy for this nation. Auditors like me have no business.
But the Prime Minister downwards, you've been accused of meddling with government policy.
I'll just explain that. That they formulate policy. But what is my mandate as an auditor? My mandate as an auditor was to audit the implementation of that policy. So if a certain policy was not properly implemented in 2008 or in 2010, it's my responsibility to point it out. But I cannot say that the policy formulated in 2008 was wrong. We've never said it anywhere. So anybody who believes that we are getting into the domain of policy formulation must point out where. We have never arrogated onto ourselves to advise government on policy formulation. But we don't.
Okay, come.
So many relevant questions already asked. I want to ask two simple questions. First is, do you think or do you have any plan after retirement to serve the country? And second is, we all are aware that CBI and enforcement agency are under tremendous pressure by government. So do you think there is a need for constitutional amendment to give CAG a prosecuting powers too?
Well, if you ask me for my personal opinion now that I'm a retired person, I don't think the CAG should be given powers to prosecute.
Why not?
We don't have the expertise. We don't have the competence or the expertise. It'll need us to prepare a huge silo, a huge department of people from the foundation itself, how to investigate, prosecute, take it to court, etc., etc. I don't think we should be in any way diverting from the focused auditing that we do. There's an agency for that, and I think it's best left to that agency.
The agency is under tremendous government pressure. They are not working in an autonomous.
If the agency is under government pressure, the world gets to know about it. And I think the agency has got a very good track record. They have delivered very excellent prosecutions.
Sir, my first question.
What are your post-retirement plans?
Okay, my post-retirement plans. Number one, these days, of course, 24/7, I'm a total employee of wife. Number two, I intend to take a short holiday and relax for a while. I have my children living abroad. I intend to spend some time with the children and grandchildren. Then, as you said, each one of us serves the nation in whatever we do. Now, what exactly I'm going to do, I have not decided. It's not clear in my mind as yet. Hopefully, in about 3 to 4 months' time.
But nation needs you, sir. Needs person like you.
And the nation needs you also. All of us. All we need to do is, you and I, just keep that space around us clean. Nothing else. If we've succeeded in doing that, we've succeeded in cleaning up the nation.
How do you intend to serve the nation? Because you've been asked this one question several times by us at the conclave, so I won't ask that again. Do you see yourself, because you've now become an icon of sorts also, people look up to you, you carry moral weight. How do you see yourself serving the nation?
I don't know what service to the nation means. Anything that I do, hopefully anything that I do productive, is in some ways leading to serving the nation, serving the economy, building up this great country of ours. That's why I said I'm not very sure what I can do. See, I will probably be doing something in the private sector, which hopefully will be contributing to building up the economy, maybe contributing to building up the nation too. What exactly? I really have not crystallized my thinking.
But lots of people say that we need good, clean people in politics. People with a good track record should come in, try and clean the mess that everyone keeps cribbing about. Why don't you take that up as a challenge and serve as a beacon for others to follow?
No, lovely. I mean, people have done that. I could also be doing it. But I clarified only before a media channel yesterday that it doesn't appear to be my cup of tea.
Why not?
I mean, see, some things don't come to you naturally. So I would rather do something in which my potential gets used to the maximum. Here I feel that some way I may not be able to utilize.
No, one is direct electoral politics. Then there's also the Rajya Sabha route where you come in and try and work within the system itself to try and clean the system. Is that an offer that you'd be open to consider at least?
That's why I said whether politics, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha doesn't make a difference. I told you it's not my cup of tea. I don't take to it naturally. But I would like to contribute where my contribution would be of a higher value. May not be. I mean, I feel that in politics I may not be.
All right, Mr. Vinod Rai, for joining us on the Right to be Heard Town Hall. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. Lots of people highly inspired by your work. Hopefully, they'll also act on the suggestions that you've given them. Thank you very much for joining us on the Right to be Heard Town Hall. A big round of applause, please, Mr. Vinod Rai.